Hello, everyone. Welcome to another conversation. And today we're having a conversation with Tomoyuki Hachigo, who is the co-founder of Sprintlaw. Tomo, thank you very much for making time to join us today.
Thanks for having me, Horace.
How would you describe what Sprintlaw does in a 30-second pitch, in an elevator pitch?
Sure. So we are a new kind of legal provider, and we're our mission is to reinvent the way small businesses get legal services. And so we've got a suite of what we call legal products, and they're packaged legal services that people can buy for fixed fee and get things done. And yeah, I suppose it is just like any sort of lawyer, you get a legal services done, but for us, it's affordable, quick, easy. Yeah, that will be the summary of what we do. Yeah.
What is your secret to getting out there and engaging with people who need legal help?
When we started Sprintlaw, we focused on what's missing, what's the gap in the market, what's the problem that we're trying to solve. And the simple problem is that our target clients, small businesses, startups, they don't have access to quality legal services, business legal services, in the same way that big companies do. So we looked into why is it that so many small businesses find legal services hard to find, or find it a bad experience. And it really comes down to a few things like lawyers are expensive or appear to be expensive, confusing, time consuming, not online. All those things combined together make it a poor experience. So we sort of start from that proposition, and we've created Sprintlaw, which is a purely online, fast legal service provider.
It's a really interesting way of thinking about this problem, and I've never heard a lawyer frame it in that way. You don't hear lawyers say, I recognize my clients have a problem and I want to go and solve that problem. Instead, what you usually hear from lawyers is kind of like, well, this is what I practice, and I'm going to go and look for clients who need my specialty, my expertise. You guys have turned it around, and it's almost like design thinking for lawyers.
When we first started, I think, and one of the problems with law, it's getting better now, but back then especially, is that people, especially young people, and even sort of most people these days, when you're looking for anything, you go on Google and you search, get a shareholders agreement or something. And typically, well, back then especially, you go on to a law firm's website, and it tells you what they do, like you mentioned, areas of law, like corporate law, insolvency law, and then about us, it's just all these heads of people. And that's not very intuitive for just a normal, it might be good if you're another lawyer, and if you're a general counsel of some big company and you want to see the expertise, maybe that makes sense. But for your average business owner, that's not a very intuitive way of looking at what a law firm does, or what even legal services is. So if you go to our website, it's very, very much about what from a customer's perspective, what's their user journey. So typically our customers would search on Google or see us on social media or whatever, and they'll get to our website, and it's very clear that you click this button and you'll get a quote. That sort of, I think it is a form of design thinking, but really it's about having a bit of empathy, thinking about what the customer wants, what is useful for them. Yeah.
So in your world, which is, I suppose, one where you have to optimize the work you deliver, optimize the way you perform to service this customer group, which is much more cost sensitive. How do you go about making sure that what you're delivering is top-notch legal advice?
So we do fixed fee only.
Wow.
And Yeah, but that's sort of by design. We can only do we focus on the kinds of legal services that are packageable, and
Hmm.
so there's a sort of repeatable element to the things that we do,
Mm.
um, and I think a lot of the problems around traditional legal practice is that these lawyers pretend like every new matter that they have is bespoke and novel,
Hmm.
when probably 90% of it is the same. And really, the client shouldn't be paying for that 90% on a time basis. They should be
Yeah.
paying for that 10% human touch. And the remaining 90% is really just kind of firm IP, which I suppose there's a value to it, but it is not time based.
Hmm.
Um, and so um, we by doing that, it streamlines the process, and so it brings the cost down. It brings cost certainty, and it also standardizes the quality to an
Mm.
extent. Um, every time we do a job, we kind of feed the process, the knowledge from that into our knowledge base, and we actually get better at doing that same thing. Um, but we also can do it faster, but with better quality. And that's been we kind of always knew that that would be the case.
Yep.
That's sort of it's quite obvious when you think about it. But having done it, that is like probably the one thing that sort of just getting better and better every time, and it's quite exciting. Yeah.
That is a really neat way of putting it. Lawyers work on experience, right? The more experience lawyers have, the better they're able to work. And over time, you kind of distill this experience into knowledge that's reusable. I've seen this before. I will act in this way because I know it's going to lead to a better outcome. And one of the things that's not done very well in most law firms and most organizations of any sort is capturing of that knowledge in such a way that allows everyone else in the team to use it. So, how have you guys captured that knowledge for, I think now you've got a team of 30?
So I suppose again, this is thinking about the customer or the problem, but in this
Mm.
case, it's the user who's the lawyer. Why are they behaving in this way?
Hmm.
And it's because at the end of every job, um, you sort of spend all these hours on a job, and you finally get to the end. There's no simple way where you can kind of put that thing into the brains of the organization.
Yep.
So it's just easier. Um, I think that's it's very simple that you don't really um, do anything with that. And so what ends up happening is that you have your own sort of local set of files, and so that's an issue because the most useful stuff is not really accessible to everyone, and um, yeah, it's sort of hidden in people's brains. And so what we do is we have a knowledge system which we call the Sprint Yard. Um, uh,
Cool. I like the name.
and the Sprint Yard is basically just a collection of it's kind of like metadata of um, what we've done in every job. So at the end of every job, a lawyer would fill in a very simple form saying, you tick some boxes about whether it's got useful clauses, whether there are any uh, whether it can be turned into a precedent or
Mhm.
who we acted for, all that kind of stuff. As in, like, do we act for the buyer or the seller? That kind of information. Um,
Mm.
and then based on that, we have a process of pulling that document out, de-identifying it, putting it into a clause bank or whatever, and then you can next time one of your colleagues have something similar, they'll search on the system, and then keywords will pick up certain clauses and certain information. And that we kind of took a more bottom up approach where we knew
Mm.
that this is how lawyers behave. We knew that if you made lawyers create gold standard templates and update things, it would just take ages and people won't do it. So
Mm.
this is the most simple kind of. It's not the most polished way because, but it also doesn't have to be because lawyers they don't really they're going to read the thing anyway.
Yep.
So it's more about finding certain phrases and clauses that work, and then a lawyer would then take that and think, well, does this work in my scenario? That's sort of how we've designed the system.
It's interesting. You're talking about sort of cost benefit analysis of, well, do you really need the Rolls Royce or the Lamborghini of a knowledge base, or can you observe how lawyers work and just give them something that will drive them from point A to point B?
And it's interesting how, and you would know this being in legal tech, how a lot of lawyers, when they think about innovation, they go straight to technology, and they think that if you buy this software and implement it, then suddenly you're gonna be very efficient. And that's not even the problem. Like the problem with legals is that it's a process issue, and then once you have a new process, then you can apply the technology. You can't really give people tools to be more efficient in the ways that they've been inefficient in the past. So,
yeah. It's that old saying of people process technology or people process product. Who do you look for when you have lawyers join your team? What are the qualities that you think make a lawyer amazing?
Sure. I suppose because we are a services customer facing industry, what makes a lawyer amazing is what clients think is crucial for a good lawyer. And what I've learned over the years is that good technical legal skills is just a given. Even you don't even get points for that, because no one wants a 4 out of 5 star lawyer, right? So which is actually, all lawyers know that that's a very high bar, but that is the expectation, I find.
Right.
So I suppose that's sort of a given, but that is obviously very important for us. Then probably the more specific things for us is that, first of all, they're, I suppose, tech savvy or tech open to new ways of doing things. And by that, I don't mean they don't have to be able to write code or anything. It's more that they're sort of open-minded in a way such that when we say we're not doing it that way, we're doing it this way, or they'll also bring up new ideas of why don't we do things this way. That's quite important for us, because that's a core part of our mission, to make things better and easier and faster and simpler, and that's what clients want. The most I think most important one actually is the people skills, and probably specific to our market, where we service average business owners, and they're not like you're not dealing with the general counsel or some ASX listed company. And in that market, in the corporate top tier market, they might actually just want someone who is just a legal genius and can back up some sort of weird curly legal question, and that if that's what they want, that's fine. But for us, it's actually, we're dealing with sort of less complex legal issues. The more important part is the commercial problem solving, and that requires people skills, understanding what does this client want, what are they trying to achieve, what problems do they have, and how can I apply my legal knowledge and skills to solve what they want. And that often, people are just they might just need someone with that legal experience to tell them that this is a law, and sort of say, well, this is what you should do in your scenario because I know that you're this kind of person. So that's I suppose human kind of skill that I think, as more of the technical elements of legal practice becomes more automated and process driven, I think that's probably where the future of bulk of what lawyers should focus on would be.
I was talking to someone about the sorts of behavior that small business owners sometimes take, not always, but sometimes. And that is when they're faced with a legal problem, when they're faced with a complex contract, sometimes they just go, you know what? Stuff it. We're going to put that down. We're not going to read it. It doesn't matter. What's my risk anyway? And so rather than getting advice, they're just wearing the risk. Now, what's your take on businesses like that? And why do you think that there is this fraction of businesses that decide, I'm not going to solve the problem? And how do we help them?
Sure. That's actually probably the reason why we started Sprintlaw. I wouldn't say it's a fraction of business. I reckon it's the majority of businesses have that behavior where they wing it, basically. I see that as our biggest competitor in that it's not some other legal provider. It's the that instinct of just doing what you just mentioned. And yeah, that is sort of, we saw that as a problem because actually when I used to work at a big firm, you often, I was working in M&A, and sometimes you see smaller companies on the other side, or being bought out or whatever, and you would see the quality of the legal services that they're getting through DD, and some of the key contracts that they've signed up to can cost them millions in an acquisition scenario or exit scenario.
Yep.
And that was actually the light bulb moment when we were like, well, why didn't they spend a few $1,000s up front and they could have saved millions later? Like, it just didn't make sense. That sort of led us to the problems that we mentioned, which is that lawyers for that market is just too much of a headache and end up winging it, basically.
It's almost like an access to justice problem. And
yeah.
I mean, how do you reach out to businesses like that and say, hey guys, don't wear the risk. Let us help you. And for just a few $1,000s or a few $100s or whatever the right cost is, let's alleviate that $1 million bill down the track. How do you reach out to these businesses and convince them?
Sure. So we've got a fairly sophisticated marketing operation where we've borrowed bits from tech companies and digital agencies where you've got a normal funnel marketing strategy where at the bottom of the funnel you're targeting people who are on Google intentionally searching for problems they currently have. And that market, I think, has been the most underserved in terms of marketing because there was some stat that said, I forget, it was probably like 70 or 80% of those people who thought about seeing a lawyer and went on Google and did a search, they ended up going with some recommendation from someone they know. So what that showed us was that the website user experience, online user experience for legal services is not great. Like, people end up on those websites I mentioned, and it just kind of confuses people even more. So there's that sort of that bottom of the funnel. I think there's a lot of people you can capture by employing fairly standard just sort of digital marketing, content marketing strategies there. But then there's sort of, I think that one's quite obvious, and that's sort of a quick win. There's then lots more opportunity up the funnel where you sort of build a brand around who you are, what you stand for, what your unique proposition is, and that's sort of a longer term strategy, which I suppose we've been working on since day one. And probably recently we're really seeing the fruits of that, the brand and the kind of message that we're trying to get out.
It's interesting. What you're describing is definitely something that's borrowed from digital marketing. It's something that I think other industries do a lot better than the legal industry. And I love that it's brought you so much success and so much reward over time. So what is in the future for Sprintlaw? Where do you see yourselves going in the next couple of years?
Our immediate focus is in Australia, where we want to be the go-to provider for small business legals. And currently, that's a market that's quite fragmented. You've got thousands, tens of thousands of solicitors across the state and the country,
Yep.
sort of servicing their local geographies. And I think that model is not the best for a lot of the business legals that we do. So we want to be in a spot where when people think of small businesses, they need legals, they think of one of few brands, and Sprintlaw is one of them. That's sort of where we're heading to. And I think there's also opportunity to emulate this this model in other jurisdictions overseas as well.
Oh, wow, that's very exciting. As in, you are planning an overseas expansion.
Yeah. We've kind of experimented. In the UK, we sort of we've been looking into the market and things like that. But I think there are regulatory hurdles in different jurisdictions.
Yes.
But I think from our research, from all the conversations we've had, everywhere in the world, there's the same problem, that legal services are a headache for small businesses. And so I think there's a huge opportunity wherever. I think just sort of the conversion and the regulatory hurdles, they're sort of specific to each place. But other than that, I think the proposition is quite powerful. Yeah.
Tomo, your words today have just been incredible. And I think you've revealed so many of your secrets, which we're now going to spread to everybody. So I hope you're okay with that. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.